Happy 40th birthday to Alton Towers. I'm Sean Sandbrook, you're watching Theme Park Worldwide, and in this video I'm going to be sharing some of my favourite memories from over the years of visiting Alton Towers. It's always been my local park, it's somewhere that I've been to literally hundreds of times. So in this video I'm going to go through some of my favourite memories. That includes favourite rides, shows and events that have been held at the park, and sort of compile it all into this video to celebrate 40 years of Alton Towers. Now originally, today I'd planned to go to the park. I was going to film a really special video going round, talking a bit about the history of the park, some of my favourite memories, and actually film it around Alton Towers. Of course, that isn't possible with what's going on at the moment. However, later on in the year, hopefully we'll be back in the park and I'll be able to do something similar to what I'd planned to originally do today. But I thought with Theme Park Worldwide, you know, it's the park that started this channel, and me being a theme park enthusiast, so I thought I've got to celebrate Alton Towers here on the channel. So once again, happy 40th birthday to Alton Towers. It opened on the 4th of April 1980, 40 years ago, and John Broome, he bought the site, and he was a businessman and he wanted to turn it from not just a tourist attraction of people to go and see the gardens and the towers, and actually turn it into a theme park. And in 1980, that is when the Corkscrew opened. Now, some of you may have noticed I'm wearing this t-shirt just here. This is actually from the final day of the Corkscrew. I was there, it was the 9th of November 2008. You can see the dates actually here. You got the 4th of April 1980 and then the 9th of November 2008 when the ride closed. And they had this fantastic closing ceremony for the Corkscrew. But before I talk more about that, let me just share my first memory. And of course that is riding the Corkscrew for the first time when I was a kid. Blimey, I was so scared queuing up, looking at it and that double corkscrew thinking, we're going to go through that. Bear in mind at the time I wasn't an enthusiast at all. It was more, you know, I loved visiting the park, but I wouldn't have classed myself as an enthusiast. I was just a kid, you know, I didn't know anything about the different elements on the ride. And I was standing there watching it thinking, oh my God, and we got up to the station, a very temporary looking station it was. I mean, really the Corkscrew was a temporary ride really, but it ended up staying there for all those years. But you know, you went into the station, pulled down on my harness and it made that clicking noise, you know, like them Vecomas do. Hearing the lift hill motor, it had a very sort of iconic sound, that lift hill motor in the end. And then you go up the lift hill. You know, and I was really scared at this point. And the fact that it didn't just drop down straight away either. You did that little tease of a drop and then it banked around to the right and then down and banked to the right again and into the corkscrews. But, you know, I was scared. But after that, you know, it kind of got me into roller coasters. And I thought, you know what? You know, I'm going to try more of these. And that is exactly what I did. But the closing ceremony for the Corkscrew, now that was really well done by Alton Towers. They were selling these shirts. I've still got a few of these. I bought a few at the time thinking, you know, I love this branding so much, like with the old logo and stuff, so I thought I'm gonna get a few of them, so I thought I'll get one on for this, why not? So yeah, it's crazy to think, isn't it? Like, that was 2008, we're in 2020 now. That was 12 years ago the Corkscrew closed. It's crazy, isn't it, how fast time has gone? But you know, that day was amazing because you actually got to walk underneath the Corkscrew as well and just look up at the coaster, and you know, it was really nicely done. They opened up an area underneath it so you could get really close to it, and it was a great day. Met loads of people who I'm friends with today, you know, because of that. So it was awesome. When the Corkscrew opened, it actually attracted 30,000 people a day to the park. There was queues of 6 to 9 hours to actually ride the Corkscrew because there was nothing else like it. People hadn't seen something like that in the UK, you know. So it was amazing, it really was, and I'd love to have been there to have seen that, you know, 30,000 people going just for the Corkscrew and a 9-hour wait for that, you know. Can you imagine it now? But it happened, you know, and it's one of them fantastic memories from Alton Towers that I'm sure many of you have got. And that's what I want you to do in this video. As I'm sharing my memories, think of yours and comment them down below in the video description. I would love to put them all down below in the comments. You know, I really want to see all of your Alton Towers memories. Another big memory for me was riding Nemesis for the first time, the park's B&M inverted roller coaster. It opened in 1994. Of course, I didn't ride it then. I'd have only been 1 year old because I was born in 1993. But I did ride it in the early 2000s. And you know what? When I went on it for the first time, I was blown away with how intense it was. Don't get me wrong, it was still a scary experience, especially walking up the queue line with all the atmospheric music. However, what an experience it was to actually go on Nemesis for the first time. I'll always remember it, you know, going on there with some friends actually, you know, and climbing up that lift hill and thinking, oh, you know, I'm holding on to this restraint, thinking what's going to happen next? You know what, and I just loved it. And another reason that made me the theme park enthusiast that I am today. And Nemesis is still a big highlight of the park. It had a track repaint a few years ago, looks really fresh. There's some more elements I'd like to see updated on Nemesis. You know, I'd like to see him do some more work around it, but in general, it's not looking too bad at all. But there you go, my first ride on Nemesis was a big memory. Onto a dark ride now, the Haunted House. And I'm not talking about Jewel, the Haunted House Strikes Back, the original Haunted House. Now, that opened in 1992, so that was the year before I was born. But I first rode that in the late 90s, and I was terrified going on that as well. I rode that with my parents going on the original Haunted House. And there was so many fantastic scenes. Of course, back then, it wasn't an interactive ride like what it turned into. You know, it was just set pieces, and there was different audio in all the different rooms, and it had a really, really nice feel to it back then. What they did with Jewel, I was never a fan of, and I remember like late 2002, a sign going up out the front saying, you know, the Haunted House Strikes Back, it's changing for next year. And of course 2003 came and Jewel opened, and yeah, it's a mixed reviews. I think there was a lot of families that enjoyed how interactive it was. At this point, I was becoming more of an enthusiast, as you would say. So, you know, I wasn't a fan of that, you know, what they'd done with it, because I was thinking, oh no, you know, they've changed this ride. That was a turning point for me when they changed Jewel. That made me think, hang on a minute, I'm really putting a lot of thought into this. And yeah, they changed it from this wonderful themed experience designed by John Wardley into this interactive dark ride that just wasn't great at all, in my opinion. But Jewel is a lot better now than it was in 2003. Like, you know, they did some lighting effects, some changes with the audio recently as well. So it's in a lot better state than it was then. But yeah, them memories from Jewel certainly stick right there in my head, and riding that for the first time. But definitely the original Haunted House, you know, that was incredible to experiencing it. I'm just so glad that I did get to ride it back in its good old days. So my next big Alton Towers memory to talk about was 2002 and a visit to the Halloween Spooktacular. Now, this event had been running a couple of years before that, but 2002 really shines to me because that is the year that Terror of the Towers first launched at Alton Towers. And back then, you know, nobody really knew exactly what it was about. And you got to think, I was still relatively young back then, you know, and I actually went into Terror of the Towers. I don't even know if I should have done at the time in terms of age restrictions and stuff, but I did. I went in Terror of the Towers, and I remember going through it and thinking, what the hell is this? What's going on? You know, it was a fantastic experience to see it all. But yeah, I did go into that original version in 2002, and it was the complete opposite way round. You know, you started like down in the Bullseye Tunnel, as it's known, but it started there and then you went into the towers that way, and it did stay like that for a few years later with Terror of the Towers. Of course, after 2003, the park really sort of drew back on the Halloween events. However, that did come back in 2007, of course, when Scarefest launched. But yeah, that version of Terror of the Towers, you know, I do remember that, and just Spooktacular in general. And moving on to a big Alton Towers memory for me, one of my favourite ever parts of Alton Towers that I wish was still there, the ice shows. Like Spooktacular on ice, what they did at Halloween was incredible. What a brilliant show. Full-on West End style production. It was in Storybook Land in a huge tent, and it was just incredible what they did with stage effects, lighting, the ice skating itself. Of course, the first one of those I remember seeing was Peter Rabbit and Friends on Ice when I was a kid. That was amazing. All of the costumes for that, you know, it was stunning. It really was. And then they did the Halloween version, Spooktacular on Ice. I remember seeing that. I think it was year 2000. I remember going to watch that as well. I think that was one of the first ones they did of that style. But yeah, in terms of the ice shows, they were incredible. As the years went on, they did a show called Webmaster, an adventure on ice. I loved Webmaster. It was very different, but it was a modern style feel with that, you know, in terms of a lot of screens about and this virus taking over. But the story of it was great, and special effects and lighting. Following on from that, they did some shows called the Circus of Illusions, and they had the twins in. They were like a pair that did these magic tricks and big illusions. They went on to perform in Las Vegas and all sorts. But the ice shows, that's the biggest thing that I really wish Alton Towers had not have took out. Like, you know, it cost a fortune to do. The last ice show was 2006. It cost a fortune for them to put on, but I tell you what, it was more than worth it. And with what Alton Towers has turned into now, they would have been perfect for that park. It really, really would. The whole family resort. You got to think 2006, 2007, the park were moving kind of, you know, on this rocky sort of road, not really knowing where to go. However, back like now and what they've turned into again, it would have been fantastic if the ice shows were still there. Of course, there's still entertainment in that space. It's a big fun showtime now in CBeebies Land. But yeah, loved the various ice shows over the years. 2003. Big memory for me, the opening of Splash Landings Hotel and Kariba Creek, as it was called back then, the water park. What a great memory. So back then, my mum worked at Alton Towers. I mean, she worked there for years when I was growing up. You know, she always got free tickets. That's why we went so much, you know. I spoke about this before, but our family didn't have much money when I was growing up. So going to Alton Towers was a very special experience, you know, and it was for a lot of people. But yeah, I'll always remember our mum actually worked there for the opening of Splash Landings, and it didn't open on time. You know, I think it was supposed to open the 1st of June or early June anyway, you know, and it was supposed to open then. However, it was a little bit delayed to what it should have been. However, it did finally open. And I remember going and walking around it, and we sat in Margarita's bar, you know, and just all this entertainment. They had like there wasn't a stage in there back then, and they had like this carnival like come down through the bar, like all maracas and drums and dancing. I loved it, and looking out over the water park, it was great. I mean, back then it was exclusive to hotel guests as well. Of course, with my mum working there, we went in and experienced the water park. But I'll always remember, and we stayed there as well in the hotel. It was a really, really special memory from Alton Towers there. Of course, the resort side to it has grown so much over the last few years with loads of new accommodation. But for me, Splash Landings, and especially when it first opened with the whole storyline of it, the Paradise Plumbers and everything like that. There was a steel band quite often in the reception area. That was special to me, and I'll always remember it. But I had like loads of parties there with my friends from school when I was a kid as well, because they did fantastic parties and stuff. So yeah, brilliant memories from Splash Landings in 2003. 2004 I've got a big memory, and that's from Dr. Pop Rocket, the firework display that was absolutely incredible. Now part 1 was 2004, part 2 was 2005, but that original version what they did was amazing. It was so cheesy, but I loved it. They had a big screen, and as you know with the fireworks, they change it every year with the storyline, and they still do to this day, and they do some fantastic shows. But there was something about that storyline. It's my favourite ever show what they've done. Dr. Pop Rocket was incredible. It was all about calling up and saying, you know, we need to make this show interesting. We need to tell the history of Alton Towers and not make it boring to all these people. So, you know, it was really, really well done. They dialed up this number. Dr. Pop Rocket came in, and there was all this wonderful music, all these flame machines across the front. It was incredible. 2005 was good for part 2. However, you know, it wasn't quite as good as the original. You know, it was more about Rita and launching into the future and stuff with 2005. But yeah, Dr. Pop Rocket, amazing memories. We're talking of Rita, 2005. That is a memory that I've got. As much as I'm not too keen on the ride nowadays, you know, I find it a bit tame and it doesn't really fit in that much. Back then, I'd not really done much in terms of launch coasters, only really Space Mountain and Rock and Roller Coaster at Disneyland Paris. So I went on Rita on opening day, and I remember thinking, blimey, that was intense. I went there with my mum that day. And obviously she's not a big fan of roller coasters, so she wouldn't ride it. So I remember going on with this really old man, actually. You know, I think I remember chatting to him. He was in his maybe 70s or something, and I was chatting to him. Really, really nice bloke. And we went on the ride. He sat next to me on there, you know. And it was amazing because he was there with his arms up. He was loving it, you know. And I was there holding on like, you know, what's going on. But yeah, brilliant memory for me, the opening day of Rita in 2005. It was a day that changed Ugland forever, that was. You know, I loved Ugland how it was before. However, it had a really good vibe on that opening day. All the bunting they had hanging up, it all looked very fresh back then. Rita's track colour was amazing. Like now, it's all, you know, it doesn't look that good. I mean, it fits with Dark Forest, doesn't it now, I guess. But I loved that fresh look that it had before. I thought it was fantastic, really. But there you go. The opening day of Rita 2005 was a big one for me. Something else as well in 2005 that happened that I wasn't a big fan of was the closure of one of my favourite ever Alton Towers rides, and my favourite dark ride they've ever had at the park, and that was Toyland Tours. They announced that was going to close, and it did, to be turned into Charlie and the Chocolate Factory for 2006. That I was also there on the opening day for, actually. I remember meeting loads of people that day. But yeah, like in terms of Toyland Tours, what made that ride? It was this journey through this toy factory, and you go through all these different scenes, and there was so much going on. There was bouncy castles, there was a snail on like a Scalextric track, there was a Sonic the Hedgehog scene, there was dolly mixtures, there was this train going round in front of this big castle, and then at the end, of course, you had this big like jelly on the left hand side. There was all these cupcakes spinning round, all big set pieces, and then it ended with this really funny hippo in just a bra dancing, and it was so funny. But that ride was incredible. It just hit the nail on the head of what Alton Towers always should be, in my opinion, and taking that out for Charlie and the Chocolate Factory was one of the worst decisions they made. I think that and the ice show removal are the two worst decisions they've probably ever made, actually, at Alton Towers, in my opinion. But yeah, it was a brilliant ride. I'd love to see them maybe look at it again in the future and think, you know what, let's bring back that classic and reimagine it into today. I'd love to see them do that. I think it'd go down really well at the park, and a lot of people like myself who've got their memories from it would also really enjoy that, definitely. So then, we had a couple of darker years for Alton Towers. I would say Charlie and the Chocolate Factory opening, don't get me wrong, it wasn't an awful ride, but it just wasn't great compared to what was there before. 2007 came along, we had Extraordinary Golf. That was a good thing that came in, followed by the Dung Heap Playground and also Haunted Hollow. That was classed as an attraction, even though it was just a path with a couple of bits of theming on. So some darker years. But then, of course, Merlin Entertainment's bought the park, and it was looking really positive then. So 2008 came along, a big rebrand for Alton Towers, loads of new logos and everything. Of course, that's the year that when the Corkscrew did close as well. But it was a big lot of change. Mutiny Bay opened, Battle Galleons, the Mack Ride Splash Battle, that whole area got rethemed, and we thought things are going to be really positive. But I remember that Mutiny Bay opening day, and it was incredible. Like, everybody, it was dressed like pirates, and they were playing Pirates of the Caribbean music, which was quite funny on that day. I remember going in to this Pirates of the Caribbean music, and it was just an amazing day. Everybody dressed up. I was there in like a white shirt and like a red bandana on, and just going into this opening day of Mutiny Bay in 2008 was fantastic. And then a big memory, which is for me from 2009, was leaving school and getting my first job at Alton Towers. I started working up in the hotels, and I spent a couple of years working up there. But that was the start of my Alton Towers journey, really, in 2009. Cloud Cuckoo Land opened in the park as well. The Sea Life Centre opened. So there was a lot going on, and I thought, wow, this company's took over. Everything's looking great. I've just left school. I'm going to go and work at the place that I've always loved. And things were really good. 2010, the opening of 13. Again, a big family coaster on the site of Corkscrew. And they did a fantastic job. 3 years of back-to-back investments and reimagining the park. Entertainment was starting to come back as well. After losing the ice show in 2006, we started to see shows like the Pirates of Mutiny Bay, the Wonderful World of Cloud Cuckoo Land. All these shows are coming in. I thought Alton Towers now is going from strength to strength. And then, we had a couple of years of some mixed investments. 2011, nothing was new other than some crabs that came into the Sea Life Centre. We thought, here we go. 2012, Nemesis Subterra. Everyone's got their own thoughts on that. I could do a full video just talking about that, to be honest. But Nemesis Subterra, a mixed investment for a lot of people. And then, of course, 2013 came along and the opening of the Smiler. So, it kind of felt like things really went up. And then there was a few years of it wobbling back down again. And the Smiler, love it or hate it, it was a fantastic investment for them in 2013. Putting in a roller coaster with more inversions than any other ride in the world was a big statement for Alton Towers. And, of course, the Smiler went on to have a very rocky few years, of course, as we all know, with the accident in 2015. But, with the Smiler, back then, it was a fantastic ride they put in. And I think now, people really appreciate the Smiler still. I probably appreciate it more now than I ever have done. I think it's a brilliant piece of engineering. Yes, there's parts of the ride that I would have done differently myself, especially the theming. However, for us to have that ride at parks that can't build above the tree line is really impressive. But yeah, 2013, watching the Smiler construction, of course, it was delayed. So it meant that they were building it throughout the first few months of the season. So I was going into the park, watching the Smiler being built, and it was absolutely incredible. All their memories, seeing Gerstlauer literally sat on the track and all these teams that were erecting the coaster and just whacking these bolts in to put the track together. Like, there's all footage of that on the channel if you go and check out the playlist from the Smiler construction. It's a brilliant watch, and there's some of my favourite memories there, just sitting there on the rocks looking at the construction of the Smiler. And of course, that is when I met Charlotte as well. My girlfriend, I met her in 2013. She's now a big part of Theme Park Worldwide, and we've been together for 7 years. It's crazy, isn't it? But yeah, so the Smiler is really, really special to me for that reason. And of course, a lot of people have got memories from the Smiler over the years. You know, some people think it's really rough. I went through a stage of thinking that. Now, I think it's a pretty solid coaster, and they did smooth it out. You know, it has aged a lot better than I thought it would do now, which is really bizarre because I thought it was going to go the other way, but I feel like it was running better last year. Of course, I've not been on it yet in 2020, but let's see what the future is for that ride. I'd still love to see them bring it up to date with the theming around the Smiler and just to get it all back to how, you know, it was originally supposed to be. Some of them original concepts, it just didn't look like it. And I'd love to see them do more with that. But big memory that, the Smiler construction and the opening, and of course meeting Charlotte as well. Following the accident on the Smiler in 2015, it was all about Alton Towers recovering and building up something new. So of course in 2017 they started construction on a wooden roller coaster that would be known as Wicker Man. And back then we were all so excited because we knew that a wooden roller coaster was coming to Alton Towers finally. Looking at the layout, it didn't look really exciting. However, we knew it was going to have a big theming structure that of course ended up being the Wicker Man statue itself, Big Bob. And moving on from that, you know, they wanted to do all this theming in the station and pre-shows, and we thought, you know what, it might not be the longest wooden coaster, but it's going to be a good investment. And throughout 2017 they were putting in this coaster and building it up on the former site of the Flume, and I loved watching that. I covered the construction of that coaster more than I have anything else on this channel. It was amazing, it really was, to watch Wicker Man go up. Built up a relationship with the guys working down there. Of course, I still worked at the park at the time, so I'd actually see a lot of the team like in the staff canteen, after in Magic HQ as it's known, you know, on breaks and stuff. But of course, when I wasn't working, I was down there on the outskirts of the construction site, looking in, filming what was going on. And I built this great relationship with the guys, and we did some fantastic stuff in the run up to the opening of Wicker Man. 2018, it then opened at the start of the year, and what an incredible investment for Alton Towers. The park had recovered. They built this big wooden coaster. There was plans years ago for Woodies at Alton Towers, but they didn't get built. Wicker Man got built, and you know what an incredible ride it ended up being. It's still a short wooden coaster, but it's fitting really well, and it certainly rides better than I think a lot of people were thinking. 2018 was a really good year for the park. It really was. However, in terms of behind the scenes, there was a lot going on. Following the Smiler incident in 2015, then few years, 15, 16, 17, and into 18 at the start, just there was something that didn't feel right in terms of from an employee perspective of working there. So I made the decision to leave Alton Towers then. I mean, I started in 2009, so I've been there for many, many years. For me, it was my time to move on from working at Alton Towers. But again, that is a memory for me. You know, is my last time working there, because the team was fantastic, you know. But in terms of what was going on behind the scenes, and especially because the channel was getting bigger, you know, and I had a lot more thoughts that I wanted to share. And obviously when you work for a company, you can't do, you know, because I was working for them. So I made the decision that it was very tough for me to leave Alton Towers, you know, to move on to other things. And you know what? I look back on that decision now and think that was the best thing that I could have done at the right time. You know, I'd stayed there, I'd done some amazing things. However, it was time for me to move on. And the past over 2 years now since I left have been amazing, because I've sort of fell back in love with Alton Towers, and it was making me fall out of love with it. It was 2016 and 17, my love for Alton Towers went right down, you know, it really did, and I just wasn't enjoying it anymore. So you know, I feel like my love for Alton Towers is back there again now. It really is, and it's great. You know, I had an amazing time working there, but that was a part of my life that was then. It's moving on to other things now, and that's what I have done over the past couple of years. But you know, that kind of leads me on to what's next for Alton Towers. You know, I mean, it's 2020 now. Of course, the park's closed at the moment due to the coronavirus pandemic. When will it reopen? We don't know at this stage, but hopefully later this year we'll be back in the park, and I'll be able to film more stuff celebrating 40 years. Yes, today's officially its birthday, the 4th of April 2020. However, you know, the whole year the park are going to be celebrating their birthday. So the plan is, when we can get back in there, film some more videos about the history I've been saying for a couple of years I'm going to do a history video. I'm going to do that, so stay tuned for that. And so much more hopefully coming up later this year to celebrate Alton Towers, that special theme park that's just up the road from me here at Theme Park Worldwide HQ, that we've all got a little bit of love for, haven't we? Or a lot of love for. You know, it's been a love-hate relationship with Alton Towers. It's been a roller coaster, but you know what? It's a fantastic park. I'm lucky to live by it. Happy 40th birthday to Alton Towers. There we go. Let me know your memories down below in the video comments. I would love to know. And also, would you like to see a video of me talking about what I'd like to see Alton Towers do over the next maybe 10 years? You know, like what's next for Alton Towers? So let me know in the comments if you'd love to see that. I'm Sean Sandbrook. Thanks for watching Theme Park Worldwide. And that means it's time to cue those credits. See you in the next video, folks.